Greetings to each and every one of you. My name is Paul-André Durocher. I'm the Archbishop of Gatineau, and this is the 18th video clip in a series entitled The Mass Unconfined. Today I would like to say a few words about the second reading that is proclaimed on Sunday at Sunday liturgy and also on major feast days. Usually during the week, only two readings are proclaimed, a first reading either from the Old Testament or from the New Testament, the letters, I'll speak about that in a moment, and the Gospel. But on Sundays, we have a first reading from the Old Testament, a second reading from the New Testament, the letters of the first apostles, and the Gospel. So what are these letters that we read at Mass? They were written in the first generation of Christians, the disciples of Jesus, or those who were closely associated to those first disciples and apostles, such as Paul. Paul is the one who has the greatest number of letters contained in the New Testament that we still have today. There's Peter, who has 2, John has 3, James has 1. I hope I'm not forgetting any. There's the letter to the Hebrews also. We don't know who the author of that letter might be. But these are the texts that we read as the second proclamation on Sundays. In the first reading, we were reading the history of the people of God before the time of Jesus. Now we're reading texts that are from the time when the early churches were being established. And these texts are not only important, but essential for us, because our faith is based on these texts. Our faith, Jesus did not leave any writings. We can't say our faith is based on the writings of Jesus. There is nothing left of Jesus's writings, if he did write anything at all. What we have are the testimonies and the expressions of faith and the understanding of his first disciples. And of these, Paul is quite important because Paul was the first one who had to articulate that faith outside of the Jewish culture, because Jesus was Jewish, and his apostles during his lifetime on earth were Jewish. And so their ways of expressing themselves and of thinking of God was Jewish. Paul was also Jewish, but he had not grown up in Palestine. He had grown up outside in what we call Turkey now, in a city that was known for its great Greek cultures and its universities. Well, we would call them universities today. He was, in a sense, bicultural and bilingual. He spoke Koine Greek quite fluently. He wrote, everything he wrote was in Koine Greek. When he would go to preach, he would go into a synagogue in a new town outside of Israel. I'm talking about in Turkey, in Greece, where he traveled. He would go to the synagogue. He would speak to the people of the synagogue in the language with the understanding that they had, which came from the Jewish scriptures, but often they wouldn't accept his message, and so he would turn to the Greeks, those who were not of Jewish culture. And there he had to find a whole new way of speaking, a whole new way of understanding God, you could say, or the message of Jesus for a Greek culture. It was a remarkably creative endeavor on his part, and such an important one for us, because we are not Jewish either. We come from different cultures, and so this effort to express the faith that Jesus brought with him, or that he introduced to people, to express the relationship that Christians have with Jesus in other cultural contexts, was essential to the growth and to the spread of Christianity. Often when we read these texts, it's hard to understand them because they allude to questions or problematic situations that we do not understand. Paul doesn't explain what the problem is, he just gives the solution. So we have to kind of figure out what the problem is or what the situation that he's addressing is from the answers he's giving. And a lot of that is conjecture. But the basic principles are essential. The principles of faith, the principles of the moral life that Paul outlines in his letters, that Peter expresses, that John gives in his letters, that James does, or that the author of the letter to the Hebrews, these basic principles of faith and of morality and even of Christian life around celebrations such as baptism and Eucharist, all of that is grounded in these first readings, and they remain essential for us as Christians. And so in listening to these texts, we are not only hearing the voice of these disciples of Jesus, but we are hearing Jesus' voice through them. It is Jesus that is reaching out through them to speak to us, to touch our hearts, to help us grow in the wisdom and in the light that he wants to bring to each and every one of us, of the whole world. And so this is why these texts, they are, I'm looking for the word, important, essential, foundational. We must endeavor to make them our own, to understand them deeply, and to be able to re-articulate them in our own language so that we in turn can do like Paul, like James, and like John, and like Peter, share that good news with people who need to know that God loves them unconditionally in Jesus Christ. And so let us take to heart these words from the second reading. Let us try to understand them. Let us try to live up to them. Let us try to share them with others. And next video clip will be turning towards the gospel. God bless.